from Vox.com by way of MSN. Don't sneer at white rural voters or delude yourself about their politics. So I'm sure we all remember the two gentlemen who went on MSNBC and said, oh, the white rural rage is the reason why we're going to lose America.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
It was complete nonsense. And of course, it begs the question, how are these guys able to go on national television and call a large portion of Americans, basically rubes? Which, I mean, they've been doing that for quite some time.
This is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, the credulous boomer rube demo that backs Donald Trump. That wants to think that Donald Trump's the smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
you elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading, your geography.
But now to actually write a book about it and basically explain who they're going to blame for Beau Biden losing the 2024 election on preemptively is absolutely wild. But this is an opinion piece from Vox, because I think, and I've said I'm not the only one to say, but we've all seen the turns tabling or whatever for quite some time now. Oh, the black girl at Chick-fil-A and all the rappers. It's all over the BET voters.
So in 2008 and 2012, you voted for?
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama. 2016?
I voted for Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton. 2020?
Donald Trump.
Biden. And who will you vote for in 2024?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
We can see it. And now Vox, I guess, trying to gain back a little bit of their relevancy or authenticity, they're now admitting that, maybe that went a little bit too far. They say white rural Americans are racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gray, authoritarian fifth column that poses an existential threat to our republic. So I guess they're agreeing let me preface this by saying that everything bad, Orange Man bad, everything racist. But unless they're actually a downtrodden people who highly resent the condescension of liberal elites and wish for a little more than to preserve a sense of agency over their future and the continuity of their community's values and social structures. Yeah, I mean, there you go. And now I'm sure they're going to go on for 1,000 more words, but that was basically it. They are the twin poles of Blue America's current debate over why rural white folks vote the way they do. How dare the people? So we just saw several stories out of California. It's really nonstop, but fast food workers getting fired, businesses closing down, crime through the roof, gas through the roof. Why won't they do what we're doing? I mean, it's absolutely insane. This argument is as old as the urban-rural divide itself. But the latest round was triggered by White Rural Rage, The Threat to American Democracy, a best-selling book from the political scientist Tom Scholar, and journalist Paul Waldman. Nothing to see there. Schaller and Waldman argue that rural white voters are exceptionally racist, reactionary racist, anti-democratic. In their telling, these retrograde impulses turn this group into easy prey for a Republican Party that shutters rural hospitals, denies workers health insurance, erodes labor rights, and then says, in so many words, let them eat hate. Okay. All right. Many commentators and political scientists have taken exception to this argument. The Atlantic's Tyler Austin Harper argues that white rural rage illustrates how willing many members of the U.S. media and public are. How willing many members of the U.S. media and the public are to believe and ultimately launder abusive accusations against an economically disadvantaged group of people that would provoke sympathy if its members had different skin color and voting habits. Oh, the shoe were on the other foot, huh? You say rural because you can't say poor. Look, I digress, but there's obviously much more to this nonsense than, of course, just the skin color, but it's all about those smelly voters and flyover state that aren't letting California and New York run roughshod over everybody else. Even as we can see, their state's quite literally collapsing, but that's a victory for them. They want everybody to do that, so then they can, grab more power, quite obviously. In his account, the real threat to American democracy is not white rural rage, but white urban and suburban rage. Okay. All right. I guess I stand corrected. Of course, it's always about race. Even though I've said this 100 million times that the left, the weirdo, extremists, elitists, the uppers, the regime, the establishment, whatever you want to call them, they should take a little bit more pride in the idea that it has nothing to do with your skin color and a lot more to do with your content of character and willingness to bow, your willingness to bow to the mob or jump whenever they say so. Ridiculous. Okay. A fact that would be plain to Waldman and Scheller. Harper says if they'd only paid more careful attention to the studies, their book cites. Wait, so they wrote a book and didn't pay careful attention? Okay, whatever. I mean, this is all nonsense, right? I mean, I just saw the headline and I'm just figuring, this is them coming around a little bit and acknowledging that we may have gone a little bit too far with this one. Colby College political scientist Nicholas Jacobs, meanwhile, insists that white rural rage is simplistic and inaccurate thesis amounts to little more than an outpouring of frustration with rural America that might feel cathartic for liberals, but will only serve to further marginalize and demonize a segment of the American population that already feels forgotten and dismissed by the experts and elites. Yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, and that's the whole point of this. Is like Vox is actually saying, okay, maybe we might have stepped in it this time. Maybe, but the machine's still going to go to work for them. Ask Katie Hobbs. Different story. In my view, this debate has gotten a bit muddled, with each side dancing around inconvenient facts. The argument between white rural rage's champion and its critics would generate more light and perhaps less heat if all involved grapple with 5 important truths. Oh, he's going to break it down for us. Rural white people are more supportive of right-wing authoritarianism than are urban or suburban ones. Harper's central claim that rural white people actually pose less of a threat to American democracy than urban and suburban ones rests on faulty reasoning. Well, okay. His case can be boiled down into 3 points. A 2021 paper in Journal of Democracy, sounds super trustworthy, found that political violence in the U.S. has been greatest in the suburbs where Asian Americans and Hispanic American immigration has been growing fastest. Okay. Yeah, they're going to lie with statistics here. I mean, it's clear. It's so obvious, right? The Summer of Love, the pregnancy centers, and then also back in the Summer of Love, there was like a lawyer in New York who firebombed some police or something. It's all a complete mess. We know where most of the political violence is coming from. There was even that really, really dark story either in Seattle or Portland, the Great Northwest, when a white man with a black fist tattooed on his. I digress. It was a really dark story. I don't know if you remember that one. Several high-profile right-wing extremists, including the Pizzagate gunman, came from areas that aren't rural. Okay, so it's happening everywhere. It's not just the rural people. There might be some conservatives lurking in big cities. That's crazy. The vast majority of Americans who believe that the 2020 election was not on the level and that Trump would therefore be justified in reclaiming the presidency by force live in urban areas. So, okay, it's basically everywhere. These facts establish that white rural Americans are not uniquely right-wing or authoritarian supporters of Trump, and the January 6th Capitol riot can be found in nearly every category of municipality. Harper is right to object to the singling out of white rural voters writ large, then when the problem is illiberal reactionaries in every part of the country. Yeah, it is. I agree, but perhaps not in the way that they are presenting it here. Nonetheless, his evidence doesn't contradict the premise that rural white people are unusually supportive. Okay. This is crazy. Skip down. Millions of rural white Americans support the Democratic Party. So there are loads of morons in the middle of the country that you completely wrote off that are on your side. Just like there are loads of black people who support Trump, and there are loads of women who don't support abortion. Rural white Republicans are not New Deal Democrats who got confused. Liberals and leftists have long debated the root causes of rural America's support for the Republican Party. Really? Is it really that much of a debate? Right? Look what you guys did to cities. Think about the people who don't live in cities. Why would they want you to use your heavy-handed, overbearing governance for everything? What is this even a question? We've gotten so past the realm of just actual things that are possible, right? Like this, while not as extreme, is completely ridiculous. It's complete nonsense. Of course, the cream of the crop, the top being the radical gender agenda, or it could be the climate agenda. I go back and forth. Look at all this. This is what they're going to say. And keep in mind, I highly doubt that this will get this, or let me back up. This will likely not get nearly as much coverage of the initial article that said white rural voters are the problem. The economic challenges facing many rural areas are inherently difficult to solve. Well, sure. I'm sure there's loads of poor people, but it's like, bro, everybody doesn't want the same lifestyle as somebody paying $6,000 for a sterile condo in New York, right? So yes, perhaps it's difficult to solve, but I guarantee you that creepy Democrats invading everywhere and trying to force up the minimum wage and squeeze people out of jobs is not going to solve the problem. These people know, I would argue that the white rural voters in the middle of the country would be far better off trying to figure this out themselves rather than having the political regime meddle in all their affairs and pretend they're going to help them. Most people inherit the politics of their families and communities. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. That's true. That's why, California and New York, or should I say San Francisco and New York City specifically, are these bastions of generational brainwashing, and it's gotten so bad where there's no more conversation to be had. There's no more policy debate. It's literally just you are with us, or you are against us. And I would venture to say that the older generation might not even believe that, but they don't even realize how manipulative the entire thing has become. Not all, but most, right? The people who don't have to navigate this landscape don't even care. They think it's still the same Democrat Party from 1992. Slick Willie Clinton was just as despicable as the guys we have now, but at least at that point in time, they weren't trying to tell you that you should cut the dick off your kid and the air outside your front door is deadly. So, yeah, this is kind of a backhanded compliment. So they go on with all this jargon that obviously I didn't read every single word of it. It's not worth reading because I think this is going to get far less play than the initial article, book, and news hit. But this is them coming back around a little bit. We see it with Anna Kasparian, Drea De Matteo, who, I guess to her credit, was never really political. But the rappers left and right, the turns have tabled.
Well. How the turntables.
And even Vox is now saying, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that. We called them deplorables, and that didn't work out for us either.